The story begins with a text message exchange on their phones. Miyuki sends a message to Iji apologizing. She says that something came up with her club activities and that she can't make it to their date. Iji replies that he understands and that it's okay, telling her not to worry and wishing her good luck with her practice. The scene then shifts to a young man named Aono Iji. He is sitting alone on a train. He looks sad and disappointed as he holds his cell phone. Iji thinks to himself that this was supposed to be their special anniversary date. While on the train, Iji starts to think about his girlfriend, Amada Miyuki. She is his childhood friend, and he confessed his feelings to her last Christmas. To him, Miyuki is like an idol he has always admired. He believes that if they weren't childhood friends, he probably would have never had the courage to talk to her, let alone date her. It's been 6 months since then. But since Iji has been very shy, they haven't even kissed yet. Iji just can't believe that she canceled their first official date as a couple. He put a lot of effort into today's date. Iji finds himself on a bustling street, surrounded by other people. He stops and looks up at a building, thinking to himself. He realizes that this is the movie theater where he was supposed to go with Miyuki. His mind starts to wander, and he imagines himself inside the dark movie theater sitting next to Miyuki. Suddenly, he snaps back to reality, blushing and getting flustered. He wonders why he's daydreaming about such things. Suddenly, Iji stops, a confused expression on his face. He looks to the side and sees a couple kissing near a doorway. He thinks to himself to wait a second. Looking around, he notices that he's in an area filled with other couples. He realizes he's in the Love Hotel district. Iji's face turns completely red, filled with shock and embarrassment. Iji's mind continues to wander. He imagines himself in a hotel room with Miyuki. In his daydream, Miyuki nervously pulls at her clothes. With an embarrassed look, she sits on the edge of the bed, looking hesitant. Iji snaps back to reality, feeling like an idiot for his thoughts. He decides it's probably best to just go home. But just as he turns around, he sees his girlfriend, Miyuki, with another guy. Miyuki is smiling happily, clinging to his arm. Iji is left completely paralyzed. He can barely say her name, questioning if it's really Miyuki. Miyuki finally notices Iji, and her face fills with pure shock. She stammers his name. Miyuki then asks Iji why he is there. Suddenly, overcome with rage and pain, Iji lunges forward and forcefully grabs Miyuki's arm. Miyuki cries out, saying that he's hurting her. He starts to stammer an apology. Without hesitation, the blonde guy lands a powerful punch right in Iji's face. The force of the blow throws Iji backward, knocking him to the ground. The blonde guy angrily confronts him, asking what the hell he thinks he's doing to his girl. Iji then retorts, asking what he's talking about, and states that she's the one who cheated. With a cruel smirk, the blonde guy asks Iji if he's some kind of stalker. He then tells Miyuki to say something to Iji too. The guy continues to taunt him, telling Iji that Miyuki is only dating him because they're childhood friends. He reveals that Miyuki finds Iji boring and that his sweaty hands are gross. Heartbroken, Iji looks at Miyuki, but the guy delivers the final blow. He says that Miyuki always says that kind of stuff when they're in bed together. Iji's face fills with pure horror and despair. Iji is frozen, trying to process what he just heard. He clutches his chest, in total shock. The blonde guy turns to Miyuki and asks her what the problem is. He sarcastically says that if she likes Iji so much, he doesn't mind ending things right then and there. With an angry look, the blonde guy gives her an ultimatum.
He demands that she choose. Either break up with him or break up with Iji. Miyuki starts crying, biting her lip in anguish. With a desperate expression, she turns to the blonde boy. She begs him not to leave her, screaming that she can't go on living if he abandons her. He pats Miyuki on the head. He says that as long as she understands, that's enough. But he doesn't stop there. He turns to Miyuki and demands that she say out loud and clearly who Iji is. Miyuki looks at Iji. With her face shadowed, Miyuki begins to speak. She says Iji was her childhood friend, but now she describes him as clingy and possessive, like a stalker. With a disturbing smile, she continues her cruel lie. She calls him a horrible and abusive boyfriend. Iji looks at her, his eyes wide in pure horror. He can barely stammer her name. The blonde boy tells Miyuki to make everything clear to Iji. He calls Iji a delusional stalker. Miyuki, standing next to the other boy, turns to Iji. She apologizes and says she can't be with him anymore. Then she adds one final painful order. She tells him not to speak to her at school either. Iji stands there, completely broken and empty. From that day on, his once happy daily life began to fall apart. The scene shifts to a restaurant called Aono Kitchen. Iji walks in with a gloomy face. A young man wearing a bandana and a woman are working at the counter. The young man greets him cheerfully, welcoming him. The woman smiles and comments that he came home early. The young man asks if he skipped lunch and offers to make him something to eat. Iji replies curtly that he's fine and thanks them. After that day, Iji was in shock and ended up lying in bed. All he could do was wait for time to pass, feeling lost and powerless. The woman from the kitchen appears at his bedroom door. She asks if he's not going to eat. He confirms he is. This scene repeats itself over and over. Iji kept having the same horrible nightmares. Iji's nightmare continues, showing a dark and frightening sky. He sees a scene of Miyuki being hugged by her senpai. In another scene, Miyuki is in senpai's arms. She says that Iji is disgusting, that he misunderstood their childhood friendship and became possessive. He sees himself small and helpless, trapped behind glass. Senpai's voice tells her to forget that creepy guy and focus on him. Miyuki's voice responds with a yes. Iji is trapped in a nightmare, begging for it to stop. He suddenly wakes up in his bed, in a panic. He sits up, terrified. He had become so afraid that he was scared even to fall asleep. At school, things are also difficult. A friend of Iji puts his arm around him in a friendly way. He cheerfully asks Iji if there's anything new with Amada-san. Iji looks awkward and forces a laugh, not knowing what to say. Iji sees Miyuki and her friend. He's watching Miyuki, who has her back to him. Miyuki turns and sees Iji, seeming surprised as she says his name. Her friend tells Iji not to get involved with Miyuki anymore. At the same time, she calls Iji a disgusting abuser. The friend then tells Miyuki to leave with her and pulls her by the arm. With an angry and protective look, the friend threatens Iji. She warns him that if he keeps stalking Miyuki, she won't let him get away with it. As they walk away, she says Miyuki has to properly ignore stalkers like him. Iji watches with a gloomy and defeated look. The scene shifts again, returning to his family's restaurant, Aono Kitchen. Later, in his room, Iji sits on the bed, grabbing his phone abruptly. Iji looks at his phone with a horrified expression. He sees an email from an unknown account. The message is simple and brutal. It tells him to die and calls him disgusting. The phone screen shows a list of other hateful messages. He's called an abusive bastard. Another message calls him a violent idiot before being cut off. The hate messages continue to flood his phone screen. They call him a violent creep and the worst kind of stalker. The insults echo in his mind, calling him a traitor and telling him to die. With his face twisted in horror, Iji can't understand what's happening. He desperately thinks that he did nothing to deserve this. He gets out of bed in a burst of agitation and anguish. The flood of messages continues, telling him never to return to school again. They call him a disgrace and scum, demanding that he give up. The next day, at school, Iji walks down the hallway. He hesitates in front of his classroom door, his hand trembling. He tells himself that it's okay and to act like it's just a normal day. As soon as he enters the classroom, all the students turn and look at him, creating a tense silence. Iji walks to his desk and sits down abruptly. He sits frozen at his desk, his face paralyzed with horror. He feels surrounded by the hateful words and stares of his classmates. The insults come from all directions, telling him to disappear. They call him disgusting and annoying. Others say he's the worst and a piece of trash. He thinks to himself that he did nothing to deserve this. Suddenly, Miyuki's friend slams her hand on his desk. She yells at him to shut up, calling him a criminal. She angrily says there's no way Miyuki would lie. Iji is shocked. She adds that even Kondo-senpai from the soccer club said he saw everything. He realizes the harsh reality of the situation. 2 school celebrities against a criminal like him. With a look of conviction, she declares that anyone would know who to believe. Iji lowers his head, completely defeated. He thinks to himself that he doesn't want to hear anything anymore. Iji lays his head on his desk. In despair, he wonders why it all had to end up like this. While the other students enjoy themselves in the classroom, laughing and joking, Iji sits alone on a bench outside, eating his lunch. Iji looks at his phone when a notification pops up. The message says that today's club meeting was suddenly canceled, so there's no need to attend. Iji thinks that there's no one left in class he can trust. He decides to go to the clubroom anyway. He thinks that maybe, despite the cancellation, someone might still be there to talk to. From behind the door, Iji hears his clubmates talking. One person asks if the other made sure to lie and tell Ono the meeting was canceled, saying they messaged him during lunch and adding that it's scary just to see him. One of them asks what they should do with the draft Iji drew. The other coldly replies that they already threw it away. Then the reason for their contempt is heard. They say he doesn't even have talent, yet still puts so much effort into the manuscript. Their cruel conclusion echoes in his mind. They think he's seriously pathetic. Iji's face is covered in tears. Suddenly he has an idea. He thinks maybe Professor Ayase is still in the classroom. He heads there but stops at the door when he hears voices. He sees Miyuki's friend talking to the teacher. She says that she thinks Miyuki has been very worried lately. The teacher comments that it's rare for Miyuki to have any problems and asks Hiragi if she got involved because she's too kind. Miyuki simply says that she's fine. Iji runs through the hallway. He remembers his teacher's encouraging words. He reaches his locker. Inside, he finds another horrible note. The note threatens him, warning that if he complains, they'll come to his family's shop. The scene shows the end of the school day, with students heading home. Iji is seen running away from school. He returns to his family's restaurant, and the doorbell chimes softly. The woman inside welcomes him and asks if there was no club today. She comments that she understands, saying it was canceled at the last minute. With a concerned look, she notes that he hasn't been doing well lately. She tells him to make sure he gets proper rest. Iji thanks her. Iji's mother tells him that even if he and his brother are tired, the children don't need to worry about their parents. His brother agrees, telling him to just enjoy school. That's all he needs to do. Iji knows that ever since their father died, his mother has never cried in front of them. She always smiled so they wouldn't worry. His older brother has also done his best to protect the family and the shop in their father's place. With a determined smile, Iji agrees that he'll do his best. He believes that as long as he keeps enduring, no one else has to be unhappy. The scene shifts to Miyuki's room early in the morning. She's sitting alone on her bed, unable to sleep. Ever since that day, she hasn't been able to rest. She keeps thinking maybe that day was just a dream. She wonders why things had to end up that way. She imagines what might have happened if Kondo-senpai hadn't been there. She thinks she might have clung to Iji, crying and saying she didn't want to break up. When she saw how Iji was being bullied, she almost started crying too. But she tells herself she can't cry. She believes she's the one who has no right to cry. Her friends misunderstood the situation, thinking it was just inexperience, and introduced her to Kondo-senpai. Miyuki remembers that she tried to decline. But Kondo-senpai was the ace of the soccer team, athletic and smart. He was also handsome and kind. Unlike her and Iji, who were each other's first love, Kondo-senpai had a more mature view of relationships. To Miyuki, he seemed incredibly attractive. He flirted with her, saying it was obvious that any guy would be into such a cute girl like her. He even joked that if it were him, he would have tried something already, then laughed and said he was joking. Always attentive, he asked if she wanted another drink and offered to get it for her. With a serious look, he told her she was very attractive, and maybe Iji was just intimidated by that. The flashback scene continues with the city in the background.
Kondo-senpai pulls Miyuki close and kisses her passionately. Miyuki thinks about everything she should have given to Iji. She realizes it didn't take long for Kondo-senpai to take it all away. The scene continues in a bedroom. With a confident smile, Kondo-senpai tells her it's fine. He says that if someone doesn't try anything with a girlfriend as attractive as Miyuki, it's that person's fault. He keeps up the manipulation, insisting that she isn't to blame. He tells her it was Iji who failed as a man. Miyuki thinks to herself that she must have been the perfect target for him. She admits that a part of her felt okay with the guilt. Once she became completely dependent, she felt there was no turning back. He suggests they go out on the 30th, since the club meeting was canceled. Miyuki hesitantly tries to explain that that day is Iji's birthday. Kondo-senpai reacts with disdain, looking at his phone. He says it doesn't matter and that he'll just invite another girl. Completely shocked, Miyuki can barely react. Kondo-senpai then turns the situation against her. He accuses her of always putting Iji first, making her feel guilty. He says he's tired of chasing her and that they should break up. With a panicked expression, Miyuki begs him to wait and asks what he's talking about. He ends it by saying that this way they can both be happier. She had thought Iji would forgive her. She was relying on his kindness. And so she chose the senpai. She had always thought she would marry Iji. He was the person she had spent over 10 years with, her destined one.
She felt like she needed to confess everything to everyone, but the woman inside her whispered otherwise. She knows she was the one who lied and betrayed, but she's terrified of losing everything. The next day at school, Iji's life had become a constant nightmare. His shoes were stepped on and dirtied. He found his desk vandalized with trash and hate notes telling him to die. As he walked down the hallway, he heard his classmates talking about him. A group of boys commented that he was the violent and disgusting type, saying they felt sorry for poor Amada-san. 2 girls were also talking about him. One said Kondo-senpai was so cool for getting rid of him, and the other said she didn't even want to speak to Iji anymore. Iji walked into a classroom and looked at the blackboard. To his horror, it was covered in cruel words and photos of him. There were pictures of Iji and even a picture of his family's restaurant. He realized, horrified, that because of him, his family and his father's shop were now in danger. He kept asking himself why. Overwhelmed with rage and pain, he punched the wall with all his strength. He screamed in despair, wanting to know why. Suddenly, Kondo-senpai appeared, a cruel and satisfied smile on his face. He mocked Iji, asking how it felt, calling him a criminal boy. With a face twisted in fury, Iji confronted him. He demanded to know why he would tell such a horrible lie. With a sadistic and malevolent smile, Kondo-senpai revealed his true motivation. He told Iji he did it all simply because it was fun. He sneered, saying watching Iji lose his girlfriend and everything else was a great show. He continued his cruel attack, blaming Iji. He said it was Iji's fault for thinking someone like him could be with Miyuki. He suggested that Iji should just quit school. With a wide, wicked grin, he openly admitted that he loves ruining people's lives. Crushed by the truth, Iji collapsed. He fell to his knees on the floor in total despair. Now he felt that everything was lost. The scene shifts to the school infirmary. A nurse with a concerned look stands by Iji's bed. She says she'll notify his teacher just in case. With his head down and completely defeated, Iji weakly thanks her. He sits on the bed, staring blankly, his eyes lifeless. A final, terrible realization settles in his mind. No one is going to help him. Iji thinks about how even the teachers will believe the smart and capable Miyuki over someone like him. He feels he can't even talk to his parents or his brother about what's happening. After being betrayed by Miyuki, his best friend and girlfriend, he feels completely finished. With 1.5 years left until graduation, he wonders how he's supposed to survive all of this. Suddenly, he receives a new message on his phone. It's from the club president, and his eyes widen in pure horror. The message says that after what Amada said he did, the other club members are too scared. He asks Iji on behalf of everyone to stop coming to the club. Tears stream down Iji's face as he reads the final message telling him to stop going to the club. He thinks desperately that it's not true. He cries, insisting to himself that he didn't do anything wrong. The final pain is overwhelming, and he throws himself onto the bed, completely defeated. He looks at his phone and discovers the final betrayal. His former friends have blocked him. Iji cries uncontrollably. His face is twisted in pure agony and despair. Later, he speaks with his teacher. He apologizes for the trouble and says he's fine now. The teacher simply tells him to take care of him. Iji sits alone, trying to move forward. He decides that for now, he'll just get used to the situation. He hopes his heart will grow numb to people's cruelty.
The scene shows him sitting at the top of a staircase, completely defeated. He believes that if he just endures, the cruel words will keep echoing in his mind. As Iji sits alone, his mind is flooded with insults. He sits at the top of the stairs, staring at the door that leads to the rooftop. A terrible thought begins to form in his mind. He reaches out for the doorknob. He wonders if jumping from the rooftop now would make everything easier. Iji climbs up to the rooftop, his dark silhouette outlined against the bright sky. At that moment, a girl appears on the rooftop. Iji looks up, his face blank and hopeless. It was then that he met her. A girl with blonde hair and green eyes stood before him on the school rooftop. The girl who would change his fate.
The second chapter begins on the school rooftop. AG is standing there, his expression empty and defeated. The girl looks directly at him and asks who he is. AG introduces himself, saying he is Aono AG, a second-year student. He makes up an excuse, explaining that he was skipping class and wandering around the school. He says he ended up there by chance. He thinks to himself that he can't tell the truth, that he came there to jump off the roof. She recognizes him and calls him Aono Senpai. AG realizes who the girl is. Her name is Ichijo. He remembers that she's the prodigy student who ranked first in last year's entrance exams. With her gentle personality and charming beauty, she quickly became the school's celebrity right after enrolling. He heard that several boys from different classes have already confessed to Ichijo. Ichijo seems irritated by Eiji's presence, wondering why he had to show up now of all times. Eiji tries to explain that he just wants a place to hide until lunch break is over. He mentions the awful rumors about him and politely asks her to let him stay alone. Her response is a firm no. She angrily declares that the place is hers and that she won't give it up. Eiji asks if she's sure, reminding her of the rumors about him. Ichijo confirms that yes, she's aware of them. Even so, with an angry expression, she insists that her answer is still no. Eiji is completely shocked by her attitude. She sighs, looking irritated, and says that, as she already mentioned, she knows about the rumors. They're just that, rumors, and that she hasn't seen any of those things with her own eyes. She continues, remarking that in the end, love is almost like a disease. She asks why people believe a one-sided story told by only one person. She says that nowadays people believe only what they want when they want. She finishes by stating that it's disgusting to point fingers at someone without knowing whether it's true or not. Eiji looks down with a glimmer of hope. He hesitantly asks her if that means she believes him. Ichijo replies firmly. She says it's not a matter of believing or not. With her arms crossed, she declares with conviction that judging him based on one-sided biased gossip is just too wrong. Her words hit Eiji hard. His eyes widen in pure shock and surprise. With tears in his eyes and a look of pure relief, Eiji simply says, "Thank you." Completely taken aback, Ichijo's eyes widen. With an irritated look, she asks Eiji why he's thanking her, especially her. He laughs a little and tells Ichijo that if she doesn't understand, that's fine. The scene shows the two of them alone on the school rooftop. Suddenly, heavy rain starts pouring down on them. Eiji suggests they go inside so they don't catch a cold. Ichijo, however, sharply tells him to leave her alone. With her face wet, she looks even more irritated. She yells at AG, furious. She asks if he still doesn't get it. With a frustrated expression, she shouts, wanting to know why she's there alone. AG, completely confused by her behavior, asks what the reason is. Ichijo tells him that he doesn't need to worry. She goes on to say that it doesn't matter if she catches a cold from the rain. With a desolate voice, she explains the reason. She says that for her, tomorrow simply doesn't exist. He is left completely paralyzed. AG, panicking, follows him, asking her to wait. With her face soaked and full of anguish, Ichijo turns to him. She screams at him to leave her alone. She angrily asks which part of her wanting to die he doesn't understand. In a desperate move, AG rushes forward and grabs her wrist tightly. He yells at the top of his lungs for her to stop. As the rain pours down, Ichijo struggles to break free, her face filled with panic. With a determined expression, AG shouts, "That's enough."
Suddenly, Ichijo slips on the wet floor, losing her balance. She screams in surprise as she begins to fall. In a quick movement, AG lunges forward and catches her, but the two crash hard against the fence at the edge of the rooftop. Angrily, Ichijo demands to know why he protected her. She starts to say that if the railing had been rusty, but he cuts her off, telling her to shut up. Ichi bursts out with an emotional response. He says he doesn't think there's any reason not to help someone. AG then yells a surprising proposal at her. He says that if she wants to die so badly, then at least she should spend this last day with him. He continues, shouting that they should skip class together. Ichijo reacts in total shock. Ichijo yells at AG, irritated by his suggestion to skip class. She asks him if he even understands the gravity of the situation. After venting her frustration, Ichijo seems to resign herself to the situation. She says she guesses she doesn't have much choice. Then, sitting on the rain-soaked ground, AG makes a shocking confession. He reveals that he also came there thinking about dying. He adds that, however, he never imagined he'd end up stopping a Kohai from taking her own life. His words leave Ichijo completely stunned. AG stays sitting on the ground, simply watching her. With tears streaming down her face, but wearing a faint smile, she agrees with him. She says, "Yeah, that's just how it is." The scene shows AG and Ichijo sitting together on the rooftop, side by side. The rain continues to fall, but a moment of calm and understanding passes between them. Later, they decide to leave the rooftop. AG suggests that, for now, they should go inside. Ichijo agrees with him. AG offers a handkerchief to Ichijo, telling her to use it. Ichijo hesitates, but AG insists she take it. With a slightly embarrassed expression, she accepts it and thanks him. While she dries herself, Ichijo blushes and asks him not to stare at her like that. AG quickly looks away, apologizing. Then he glances back at her. She seems a bit shy as she uses the handkerchief to dry herself. Ichijo teases him, saying that he's looking at her inappropriately right after she told him not to, calling it harassment. AG gets flustered and apologizes. Then, with a calmer tone, Ichijo asks what they're going to do now. She turns to him with a subtle smile. In a teasing tone, she says that since he invited her to skip class, he must have some kind of plan. With a smile, AG admits he doesn't have any plan. He explains that he just said it out of desperation. AG thinks to himself, so this is what her smile looks like. He mentions that, from what I heard from some classmates who confessed to her, Ichijo shows her disdain for those confessions. She asks, why do people think I would go out with such weird guys? She goes on, saying that being approached out of nowhere by some guy she just met is creepy. She sighs, looking disappointed. With a serious expression, she confronts AG directly. She accuses him, asking if he's only interested in her looks or her status. AG remembers the rumors he heard. He thinks that this is what people said about her, that she trampled on the feelings of the boys who confessed. He's surprised, since he thought she would reject his idea of skipping class. Later, the two are sitting together. Ichijo moves closer and offers him a small pouch. She says it's a reward for what he did. AG and Ichijo sit together on the rooftop. He starts to thank her, but his stomach growls loudly, cutting him off.
Completely embarrassed, Eiji starts rummaging through his bag. He feels relieved when he finds an onigiri, a rice ball. In a friendly gesture, he asks Ichijo if she wants half. Ichijo happily agrees. She takes a small bite of the onigiri and says it's delicious. Ichijo asks if the onigiri is tuna with mayonnaise. Eiji confirms enthusiastically, explaining that it's a convenience store onigiri classic. He's surprised she's never tried it before and asks him seriously, "Is that true?"
With a look of wonder, Ichijo asks if everyone really eats these tasty things. Eiji smiles broadly at her. With a happy expression, he confirms that yes, and adds that there's so much more out there. He says that dying without knowing such treasures would be a real shame. Ichijo looks thoughtful, with a soft expression and a slight blush on her face. With newfound energy, she declares that it really is delicious. She clenches her fist with determination, saying that now she's curious. With a smile, Eiji makes her a surprising invitation. He asks her if she wants to go to his house. Completely flustered and shocked, Ichijo can barely react. The scene shows the two of them leaving the rooftop and walking down the hallway. Ichijo asks him how they're going to get out of the school. She points out that the main entrance is locked. Eiji asks if she's planning to jump the gate. Ichijo reacts indignantly, pointing out that she's wearing a skirt. With a grin, Eiji says he was joking and that he knows that. Ichijo makes a sound of disdain, clearly not too amused by the joke. Eiji then explains that there's an iron door next to the main entrance. Using a simple diagram, he lays out his plan. The door can be unlocked from the inside and closes automatically. That means while you can't enter from outside, it's easy to leave from within. Ichijo, with a suspicious look, asks how he knows about the door. Eiji teases her, saying that a model student wouldn't know such things. He adds that skipping class every now and then doesn't kill anyone. With a determined expression, Eiji says it's fine and that they should go for it. He takes Ichijo's hand and starts walking. Eiji looks visibly embarrassed as he holds Ichijo's hand. Ichijo asks him why he's blushing so much and tells him to just hurry up. He asks if she's sure about this, holding hands with a guy she just met. She admits that saying she's comfortable would be a lie, but she adds that if it were in a play or a movie, it would be totally normal. With her face blushing, Ichijo makes a surprising confession. She tells Eiji that, by the way, it's the first time she's ever held a boy's hand, and tells him to appreciate that. Completely flustered by her confession, Eiji can't barely keep it together. With new determination, she pulls him by the hand and says, "Let's do this." Eiji thinks to himself that now he's really going to turn into a tomato. As they run away from the school hand in hand, a voice calls out in the distance. The voice asks, "What the two of you are doing?" But they keep running, never looking back. It's as if they're leaving the past behind and looking toward the future.
The girl, with her face hidden by the shadow of her hair, questioned herself in silence. Why was she trying to skip class with someone she had just met? She remembered how many times she had heard those same words during confessions. "I will protect you." But those phrases only awakened a deep trauma inside her. She didn't want to hear them anymore. She recalled all those boys who had tried to win her over by promising protection. But it was exactly because of that she always felt suffocated. However, Aono-senpai was different. He never used those words she hated so much. He was such a kind boy that it even worried her. She thought that maybe, if she stayed by his side, she could escape from the hell she lived in. Then the scene shifted. A young man with light hair appeared amidst flowers and arrogance. His name was Kondo Seiji. He confidently declared that he was the center of that world. He remembered his perfect life. His father was an influential city councilman. He himself had entered a prestigious school, one of the top 3 in the prefecture. There, he became the ace of the soccer team, leading even a weak squad to the national tournament. Thanks to his athletic talent, he could be the core of any team. He had height, good looks, and intelligence. Since childhood, even with little study, he always stood out. Naturally, he had always been popular since elementary school. From his very first girlfriend, back in the 3rd year of elementary school, he had never been without girls. He was always surrounded by them, maintaining relationships effortlessly. But what he never forgot was something that happened in the 8th grade at that time. The boy considered the otaku of the class was dating the idol of the group, a pure, almost irritating relationship between childhood friends who believed they would marry in the future. Kondo watched it with disdain. As expected, the girl soon fell for him, abandoning her former boyfriend. She said that being with that otaku had been the greatest shame of her life. She called him disgusting and pathetic. Meanwhile, the otaku himself wept in despair, remembering how she had once promised to marry him. It was nothing but a cruel joke. Kondo and the others laughed, saying it was absolutely hilarious. He even recorded the girl's insults and played them back for the betrayed boy, just to amuse himself even more. For Kondo, that moment when his desire for conquest was satisfied brought an irresistible feeling of pleasure. From then on, he came to love stealing other men's women. He recalled how the girls who fell for his charm would neglect their studies, how he effortlessly destroyed childhood relationships, turning old friendships into bitter rivalries. In the end, he always threw everything away. As soon as high school began, he broke up with that girl, calling her stupid for not understanding the obvious. She cried in despair, asking why he was suddenly talking about breaking up. She screamed that she had thrown everything away just to be with him. With a cruel smile, Kondo typed on his phone. He said he truly hated easy women. And then, without hesitation, he told the girl before him that he hated her and that it was over. Her eyes filled with shock and despair, but to him, it was nothing more than another amusement. The former class idol, once admired by everyone, had reached rock bottom. From a life of popularity, she had fallen straight into a miserable end. For Kondo, ruining the lives of both men and women at once was what brought him the greatest pleasure. He laughed, declaring that watching the suffering of others was entertaining. And then he chose his next target. He said the next one would be Amada Miyuki. The cruel smile blended with the twisted gleam in his eyes. He planned to bring down both Aji and Miyuki. His accomplices spread messages through cell phones, starting to circulate rumors. A post appeared on social media. "Please share this. This girl is being abused by her boyfriend, Aono." Showed a bruised arm, fueling the lie. Meanwhile, inside the classroom, Miyuki was overwhelmed with anguish. She realized that Aji hadn't returned since the morning. The classmates who had scribbled insults on his desk were now desperately trying to erase them. Her heart tightened. She wondered if Aji had given up on school because of her. Amid her nervousness, she recalled her own Navit. She had never imagined that Kondo would be capable of spreading such cruel rumors. Her eyes faltered, her hands trembled. But when she looked out the window, she saw Aji in the distance. Her eyes widened with surprise and hope. She called out his name, screaming in desperation. However, what she saw left her paralyzed. Aji was not alone. He was running hand in hand with another girl. Miyuki's smile froze. She could not understand. A deep shock pierced her chest. She asked herself over and over, nearly losing her sanity. With teary eyes, her face twisted into an expression of hatred and confusion. She wanted to know who that girl was. Later, Professor Takean Agi, responsible for Class to B. The scene shifted back to the classroom. The teacher resumed the attendance sheet, announcing the beginning of the second semester. He called the names one by one until he reached Iono, but Aji did not answer. On his desk, hateful words were carved in huge letters. "Die, loser. Get out." The teacher stopped the roll call and asked if anyone knew where Iono was. The students exchanged tense looks until one of them replied that Iono had said he wasn't feeling well and had gone to the infirmary. The teacher said he would check, but first ordered everyone to head to the gym. Miyuki shrank in her seat when her name was called, her body trembling and sweat dripping down her face. In the hallway, Nurse Mitsui rushed over, saying she urgently needed to talk about Iono. The teacher explained that he hadn't gone to look for him yet. The nurse, distressed, admitted that Iono had seemed strange and that she should have stopped him from leaving, even by force. She insisted they search the entire school, and the teacher agreed to notify the vice principal. The vice principal listened to the report and, concerned, ordered a strategic meeting to be held after classes. He asked the teacher to investigate in detail what had happened with the students. The teacher nodded firmly in agreement. Back in the classroom, the teacher faced all the students and said he wanted to talk about property damage. The class grew restless. He explained that it was about Aono's desk. Some averted their eyes. Nervously, while others stared at the desk, scarred with cruel words, the teacher declared that even if someone claimed Aono was a bad person, nothing justified writing insults on his desk. He stressed that destroying school property, maintained by the family's taxes, was a real crime. Miyuki shrank further, unable to lift her gaze, her face marked by regret. Then the teacher stated that he would not allow the situation to be downplayed. As mere bullying, he made it clear that this was not a childish prank, but a crime that could not be ignored. With a stern expression, he told them he wanted everyone to engrave this deeply in their memories,